iOS 19 is said to be the biggest change since iOS 7. Why? Well, that's because we are said to be getting a complete redesign, one that takes some heavy inspiration from Vision OS. So okay, what do we know so far? Well, Mark Gurman stated that Apple is planning on the most dramatic software overhauls in their history, aiming to transform the interface of the iPhone, iPad, and Mac for a new generation of users. Transform it how, you may ask? Well, apparently the style of icons, menus, apps, windows, and system buttons would be completely updated with a new design that is loosely based on Vision OS. But okay, what does that even mean? Well, if you look at Vision OS closely, you'll see that it uses a lot of transparency, which does make a lot of sense as the Vision Pro is a mixed reality device, so you're likely to use it in pass-through and then overlay whatever apps and windows you want on top of your real world. That transparency is therefore required for you to be able to see more of your real world as opposed to the UI elements blocking it entirely. So how would this work on iOS where, you don't have any pass-through? Well, you just get more transparency on top of your wallpaper and on top of whatever you're doing on your phone. But hold on a second, Daniel, don't we have transparency already? Our notifications, for example, already have this frosted glass look. Same for the control center. Even the dock is already transparent. Heck, we even have a ton of transparency in our very own app wallpapers if you take a look at this beautiful navigation bar that we've got going here, covering our awesome new packs for March. So okay, how would iOS 19 be any different if what it's supposed to do already exists? Well, let me give you some examples. Here's a mock-up of the new iOS 19 home screen that we've made. You'll notice the rounded home screen icons, which we've made to match with the Vision OS icons, and then you'll probably also notice a way more rounded dock as well that has a more 3D look compared to the dock that we've got now. And we've also applied that same 3D look to the widgets as well. So rather than the widgets just being a 2D transparent square, they're now a more rounded square that is also 3D. That kind of looks like it's floating there. Also, we've given the icons this exact same approach, which does give them a really nice 3D look too, especially noticeable if you look at the settings icon here. And of course, Apple could also go even further and make it so that when you tilt your phone, the glow on the glass panels also changes its shine. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I would absolutely love to see something like that. And we've also made a couple of more mockups, by the way. Here's our iMessage mockup, where we've updated the keyboard to make it more like Vision OS. So that means rounded keys, more transparent, and we've also rounded the top of it to kind of make it seem like it's floating. And lastly, we've also made the background transparent so that the current chat that you've got open sits on top of all the other chats. We've also done a mock-up of the share screen, which right now just opens up from the bottom with no transparency at all. Well, we have completely redesigned it. We've put it in the middle, gave it transparency, and made it look like the one you get on Vision OS, with rounded corners and big and clear toggles. Of course, these are just our mock-ups and ideas. If you are curious about the real deal, it turns out we can actually show you that as well, thanks to Jon Prosser. Earlier this week, he shared a bunch of images created based on some actual photos that he had allegedly seen of iOS 19. The first shows the new camera UI, which is very different from the current UI, and I much prefer it. It looks like we get a full screen preview in video mode, something that we don't actually get now since we have these two black bars here for that 16:9 aspect ratio. So I'm not sure if this means the video will get cropped in the preview, or if those extra top and bottom previews are from the ultra-wide camera instead, like it currently is in photo mode. Regardless, I think it just looks great, and I'm a super big fan of this new UI that's so clean and clearly defined without those duplicate buttons that we currently have now, like for the flash, night mode, and a few others. And you'll probably also notice that these top buttons are inside these circles now, just like on Vision OS, and basically what we've also tried to do in our own mockups as well, just a more refined version of that. If we take a look at the notification center, not much has changed here, but we do get that 3D glass panel effect on the notification card rather than the current less rounded 2D panel. I definitely do prefer the new look. The new Messages app looks very similar to the one we've got now, only that we've got these two clearly defined circular buttons at the top. Interesting enough, the keyboard actually has that same rounded shape that our keyboard in our own mock-up does, which we've actually made before Jon's leak came out. The big difference being the key shapes, which seem to remain the same rather than the circular Vision OS style keys that we've had in our mockup. I do wish we had more transparency here though, as I do much prefer the level of transparency in our own mockup here. As for the system pop-ups, these also get the new look with the more rounded corners, that 3D glass panel effect, and the bigger and easier to read buttons too. Hold on, what's that? Oh, come on. My inbox is getting flooded with spam again. Well, that's where our sponsor Incogni comes in, as it can finally stop spam bots filling my inbox with junk. Incogni removes your personal information from data breaches caused by our hacker Ren here by reaching out to data brokers to stop spam, identity theft, and more. You also have the option to include multiple email addresses and see where they have been compromised too. Doing this yourself can take forever, and you also need to be aware of every single breach. Incogni saves you the stress by automatically sending you repeated removal requests so that you never need to worry about data breaches again. Keep your data safe and sign up for Incogni using incogni.com/zoneoftech to get an exclusive 60% off their annual Incogni plan. So, what about the icons? Well, even though I for one would absolutely love to see the circular icons that we've got in our mockup, as I think these look great, we likely won't. This is John's leak, and it seems like the home screen icons have the same shape as they do now. The only difference being that they're all inside this 3D glass panel, like all the other UI elements. Even the dock, while it is more rounded than the current one, it isn't as rounded as the one from our mockups, which, you know, maybe I'm biased, but I do much prefer it. I would love to hear your thoughts down below as well. Now, John did make a very interesting discovery here, which is that Apple is already using some of these design elements already in iOS 18. For example, if you take a look at Apple Sports app, yeah, this menu up here does look very similar. Apple introduced their Sports app in February of last year, and it seems like, yeah, they did actually use some of these design elements, probably since the big iOS redesign was initially rumored to come with iOS 18, but eventually got pushed to iOS 19 because of Apple Intelligence. Even Apple's latest Invites app does share a lot of similarities too, with a ton of transparency being used, as well as these clearly defined glass panels whenever you go and create a new event. Although they're not quite as 3D looking as in the iOS 19 leaks. It is also worth mentioning that some iOS 19 design aspects may change, and we could even still see those rounded icons when iOS 19 is announced at WWDC in June. John stated this as well, that things could change, and even Mark Gurman tweeted the same. He even said that the current iOS 19 images aren't representative of what we'll see at WWDC 2025, as they are based on some old builds with some key features missing. Which means that the iOS 19 reveal will be, or at least should be, even more exciting than what these leaks make it out to be. And speaking of WWDC 2025, Apple has already sent out the invites for it, which will be on June the 9th. And if we look closely at the invite, what do we have here? A transparent 25 that's also got this 3D glass panel look to it, just like Vision OS and just like the iOS 19 leaks. So this new design leak is very likely to happen, not only to iOS, but also to iPadOS, macOS, and possibly watchOS as well. As for any other iOS 19 updates, well, there aren't any big Apple Intelligence features expected here. The big one is the contextually aware Siri, which was announced last year, but is still nowhere to be seen. And if you've been watching our videos, you probably know that it's actually been pushed until 2026, or even 2027. So really, the redesign is basically the biggest change and probably the only change that we're getting in iOS 19. And personally, I'm fully down for that, but let me know if you are as well, or if you're hoping for something a bit more. Well, more like, you know, bug fixes. Actually, that's my #1 request. Just fix the bugs, Apple, please. But yeah, definitely need to subscribe for more iOS 19 updates. We'll have updated videos as soon as more stuff comes out. Check out our app wallpapers for some free, awesome 8K designs for your iPhone, iPad, and Mac. And yeah, stay tuned for some more updates. I'm Daniel, this is Zone of Tech, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Zone of Tech, signing out. Cheers.